Good morning, students. Today we will be continuing with our topic separation of mixtures. Now have a look at this pig and try to identify the substance which is shown here. Well, these are naphthalene balls and you must have seen your mother using them a lot when the winters are going and we pack our woolen clothes into boxes or cabinets. Then we keep these balls along with them. But when we open these cabinets and boxes in the next winters, we couldn't find these balls. Have you ever wondered where do the balls go? Well, actually naphthalene has an amazing property of changing from solid to its vapors. And it doesn't change into liquid at all. Directly it changes from solid to gas or its vapors. Even when you keep it at room temperature in open for a long period of time, you will see that the naphthalene balls start decreasing in size. That is basically because the solid naphthalene is changing into vapors which are mixing in the air, and you can sense its presence in air by its smell. And the same thing happens with the balls which are kept in the woolen clothes as well, that in course of time these solid balls keep on changing into vapors and slowly they vanishes. But we can feel the presence of this naphthalene, or we can sense its presence in the form of its smell in the woolen clothes. Okay, and this process is known as sublimation, the changing of a solid directly into its vapors. Now this process can take place at room temperature also, at high temperature also. When it takes place at a high temperature, the speed of change increases. Now, do you know any other substances which you have come across in your daily life, either at home and all, which show similar kind of properties? Please pause the video for a second and think. Well, here are certain substances which show similar properties of sublimation. The first is the camphor. We come across this substance very often in our homes. It is used during aarti for lighting up diya. Then the next is iodine, then ammonium chloride, and of course naphthalene. Now here is a mixture of salt and ammonium chloride, and we all know that ammonium chloride is sublimable while salt is not. So we basically use this method of sublimation to separate ammonium chloride from the salt. Now this is the setup which is done when the sublimation is carried out. Now here we can see that ammonium chloride salt is being heated in a china dish over a burner, and it is covered with an inverted funnel. And we can also see that the opening of the funnel is closed with the help of a cotton plug. This is basically done to prevent the vapors from escaping into the air. Now what happens when the mixture is heated? The ammonium chloride starts changing into its vapors. When these vapors rise, now the upper end of the funnel has lower temperature as compared to the lower end. Now because the upper end is a bit cooler, so the ammonium chloride vapors again cools down and starts changing back to solid. Now when the ammonium chloride vapors starts changing back to solid at the upper side of the funnel, they start depositing on the inner edges of the funnel. You can see the ammonium chloride being deposited at the inner edges. So we continue this process till the entire ammonium chloride has vaporized and deposited on the inner side of funnel. When this is done, we stop the heating, we remove the funnel, and then we scratch off the ammonium chloride from the funnel. That is how we basically separate the salt from ammonium chloride. So sublimation process is basically used for separating sublimable substances like iodine, naphthalene, ammonium chloride, camphor from non-sublimable substances like salt, sand, etc. Now there is a picture of sand and salt mixture. Now you are very well aware of sand and salt and its properties. Now can you think of any process which we can use to separate this mixture? Try to think. Now what we basically do is we use the difference in the solubility of sand and salt in water as a principle to separate it. And this method is known as solvent extraction method. We all know that sand is insoluble in water and salt is soluble in water. So what happens, that salt being soluble dissolves in water, while the sand being insoluble settles down at the bottom of the container. Now we take this mixture in this form only and we filter the solution. The entire solution is filtered through a filter paper and we get the sand over the filter paper as a residue, while the salt solution is obtained in the container as a clear solution. Now the salt solution is taken and evaporated. When the evaporation is complete, the salt is left behind in the container. So this is how we basically separate sand and salt. So this method of solvent extraction is used when one of the solid component is soluble in a liquid while the other component is insoluble in the same liquid. So two methods which we have studied today are sublimation and solvent extraction method, and both these methods are used in the separation of solid-solid mixtures.